Like in Vietnam, there's cobras that stand up 6 feet high and look you in the face and spit venom in you. Yet they're walking through the grass like nothing's gonna happen. I'm like, nah, dog, that wouldn't have been me. I'm sorry.
Welcome back to the Playbook. I'm your host, Lion, and I'm joined by the Enforcer, Mr. E, and the Special
What up?
Agent, Doc Smith. How are you fellas doing
Oh,
today?
outstanding,
Awesome, man.
outstanding, gentlemen. Glad to be here.
And we have a very special guest in the house today, someone who's doing big things. Doc, let them know who we have in the house today.
Okay, gentlemen, we have a very special guest tonight. Not only is she a friend of ours, she is also a salsera. She dances. All the
Dun,
great
dun, dun.
people we bring across the, out here on the stage. They're dancers, but she's a dancer. But so much more than that. So much more. She's an activist. She actually, well, as a matter of fact, I'm not going to steal her thunder.
There you go.
I'm just gonna bring her to the stage, like James Brown. I use these references, and some of you people are gonna be like,
Hey, look it up. Look it up.
Google it. You know what I mean? Google it. We have Aja Nikiya. Tell us about yourself.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Aja Nikiya. Most people know me as the animal rescue lady, which is a pretty good title for myself. I also do a lot of humanitarian work and just overall a conscious citizen that's trying to do good in the world and bring more compassion and less suffering.
Oh, welcome to the show. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So, as you mentioned, you do animal rescue. You also do humanitarianism. What would you call yourself? Just an overall activist? Is that it?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I'm an earthling, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's tough, because we go back and forth with language, but I'm definitely like a social justice warrior fighter,
Yeah.
But I guess an activist or an advocate,
Okay.
either term could be used.
Also, you have a documentary. It was on, what was it on, Prime or HBO?
Yeah, I had a TV show that was on a few different platforms, but our documentary did go through the festival circuit, did really well, and was available through an e-streaming service, and now is on YouTube and Vimeo. Lynchpins of Dead Dog Island.
There we go. So shake them out.
Yeah.
So I've known you for quite a while, and since a lot of the guests that we have here, we know from the dance community, from the dance scene, as you guys know. Aja was one of my first instructors. Aja, let me ask you, how long you've been doing this? You've been an activist and helping people, helping animals, making film, having an impact. By the way, she just won an award for the area's Activist of the Year. So congratulations!
Best of the Bay, yeah, best of Tampa Bay.
So
She's
big thing.
Yeah.
How long have you been doing it? What was this? When was the spark? Your memory? What's the earliest memory you have of that?
Oh boy. I mean, it really goes back far. I mean, I started, I think my first love was of animals. And even as a little kid, I was always helping the ducks cross the road and, picking up the frog that was, in the road. It was just sort of second
was
nature
in
to
you.
me. It came natural. But then, in my teen years, I really started, volunteering at animal shelters, homeless shelters. I think my compassion really grew to both the human and non-human animal side. So yeah, shelter work. Then I started working at sanctuaries. And then I really started expanding upon that when I got into disaster work and working in developing countries. So it's been a progression, but I think it's always really been there since I
Gotcha.
was a kid. I've always had that compassion and empathy.
When do you feel that it became more serious to you? That you made the biggest commitment. When was that? What was that event, and when was that?
the catalyst, yeah.
Oh boy. I think the biggest catalyst for me was when I was doing my graduate work. There's actually two, but the first one was when I was doing my thesis work for my master's degree, and I had to pick a country to work in, and it needed to be a developing country. And so my research took me to Malawi and Botswana at the time. And I think that was really like the aha moment for me, where it opened my eyes to how the rest of the world really works and what a third world country is, navigating and dealing with. So that was the first one. And then my disaster work, really, that aha moment was after Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico.
I remember that because that's when I really noticed you were doing this kind of stuff. Again, I know you for a few years, and I think close to 10 years now,
Yeah.
more. And that's when I noticed when Hurricane Maria happened, you be traveling to Puerto Rico, and you're taking care of a lot of animals that, and a lot of the times are forgotten when this stuff happens. Like there's a lot of help for humans, for people, but the pets are left behind and lost, and they just that have to fend for themselves. And these are domesticated animals that they may not have those skills to survive out there on their own. And so that's when I really noticed that. So from there on, you founded your own nonprofit, correct? And since then, you have a new nonprofit. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes, so Compassion Kind is my main foundation. That's where we do all of our work. We really focus a lot on animal welfare, community capacity building projects in developing countries, and also the disaster work. So we're very, very hyper focused on those three different areas.
How long have you had the Compassion Kind? How did you?
Compassion Kind really developed in 2017, like on paper, really became a foundation in 2017. But the work really started in 2014. I was working under another organization at the time, but then I wanted to go out on my own. And so I started Compassion Kind in 2017.
And where does Compassion Kind operate? Is it just the US, or are you doing stuff all around the world?
We are based, we have a big base here in the Tampa Bay area for a lot of our animal rescue operations, adoptions, fostering. But then we're also all over the world. We focus a lot in Africa. So I've got projects in Malawi and Uganda. We also work disasters. If we worked Hurricane Dorian in Bahamas, we still have connections there, still working there. Puerto Rico is one of our other main bases. And it really just depends, wherever there's suffering and wherever we can go and make a difference and help, that's where we go.
So for disasters, I got a question. What type of relief do you provide specifically?
So it depends. A lot of the times we're very animal focused because a lot of the disasters we work, either they've been completely evacuated or sometimes there's not a lot of people left behind and a lot of the aid that's coming in is directed towards them. But then other times it's split. In Hurricane Maria, we were working on a lot of grid searches and actually helping to identify families. So we were taking lists because, when all the comms are down,
Yeah,
you have no way of finding or knowing if your family's okay.
right.
So a lot of it was taking addresses and physically going and doing welfare checks.
Okay.
So a lot of welfare checks for both humans and animals, a lot of supply drives where we, are collecting tons of supplies and setting up staging areas where people can come and collect and where we can also take it out into the communities that are affected the most. And then a huge part of it is the animal rescue. So in a lot of the disasters that we've done, we've set up actual temporary shelters where we're actively going out into the communities and rescuing animals, bringing them in, holding them for 30 days, which is usually the normal time frame that you have to hold on to someone's pet potentially. So we hold them for 30 days, care for them, and then we would work on transport out depending on where in the world we're working.
Let me ask you, so you've done so many of these things by
Yeah.
now. So you have a particular one or two that you want to share with us that left a mark on you, that were very special.
Oh, like just cases or disasters or
A case. It's like a case. Or disaster, whichever one is near and dear to your heart. You're like, wow, man.
What disaster do you look that you? No, well, yeah, we'll go with the case.
Yeah, God, there's so many cases that are so near and dear to my
What's
heart.
a recent one? Let's keep it something that's more recent. Maybe that helps.
I mean, one of the stories that really gets me is recently we had a dog. Her name was Ophelia. She was hit with a machete multiple times. And this mother dog was able to take her two babies in her mouth, rescue them while she was dealing with, severe lacerations all over her body. Not to get graphic, but it's quite a scene.
Now, this was in the States?
No, this was in Puerto Rico.
Okay.
And I, and I'm always cautious of saying these things happen everywhere.
Yeah.
Just so everyone knows.
I was just trying to
She
figure out
made
if
it,
I needed
yeah.
to go figure out who did it.
Trust
If I
me.
needed a plane ticket or if
We
I
can
can.
work on that.
Yeah.
I've got a hit list for sure.
I have a special set of skills and
We-
some guys that want to hang out with me. So yeah, we might
Great. I'm gonna take you on my next puppy mill bus.
That's what
So,
I'm talking about.
Really. Really though. So, just seeing her. So, anyways, she made it into the next yard, ends up getting attacked by another dog, still carries her babies out of this yard.
Wow.
I mean, when I hear and see things like that, it just it just makes me feel like, wow, like look at this mother. She's a mother like any other mother, fighting to save her babies
Yeah.
throughout whatever she had to go through. So seeing her recovery story and just what a bright light she is and how sweet she is, those are the things that really brighten my day. So Ophelia's a good case.
And I think you mentioned that received a lot of attention, correct?
It did, yeah. Her video went pretty viral until it was taken down. But yes, it did get a
TikTok.
lot. I know. Thanks a lot, TikTok.
It's surprising how some of the
Stuff that's up there and maintain and stays up there
Oh,
there's some
that they won't
stuff-
take down, and you know.
I
Yeah.
could tell you stories all day of accounts that I report constantly that you may not see the abuse because they're not, physically hitting the animal, but you can see through the training mechanisms and through the, what they're wearing or what they're forcing these animals to do to get views on these videos. You know that there's abusive tendencies going on, and those should be marked just like anything else because these are animals that are dealing with it routinely.
Talking about animal abuse and something that I think is probably a big issue here in the States and maybe other parts of the world, and something that I think you're actually battling right now.
Please.
Is we're talking about like how
Yeah.
puppy mills, and we're talking about some like training obedience schools that because I have a dog. I have a miniature Australian Shepherd, and she's a very smart dog. And just on the obedience school portion of it, some schools they wanted to like put these devices on her to train her. And, like, isn't that barbaric? It doesn't like someone said to me on the phone. It doesn't matter. Like it's just like no, it's my
It's your
dog.
baby.
That's right.
Like yo, you don't have to do that.
I'm a cat person. I love animals, but I have 2 cats.
Yeah, but you don't want to harm any dog, right?
No, I don't want to harm any animals. I like animals better than I like most people, actually.
That's 100.
So can you talk a little more about some of the stuff you're currently doing right now? 'Cause you're very intense right now, passionate about bringing to light some injustices.
Yes, I am currently at battle with a local organization here.
Couple
That
letters.
yeah, a couple letters. Give me a S, give me a
An A.
and a P and a C, and just like
Yeah,
put 'em
just put 'em
together,
together,
put
yeah.
'em together. Yeah, sometimes you try to take a back seat and see how things play out, see if other people step up. But in this case, I needed to step in. And what the issue was is there was a partnership formed with puppy mills, which, as we know, commercial dog or cat breeding is, I mean, it's a terrible industry. For starters, we don't need to be breeding any animals anymore because we've got a plethora of animals in shelters
Right.
being euthanized every day. Between 40 and 50% of the animals that come through most of our shelters in this county and other counties in Florida and throughout the US are being euthanized for space because of the breed, because of what they look like, how old they are. And so that's the first issue. But then when you're putting a face out there to the public saying, hey, purebreds are the best, and purebreds, are going to bring people into our shelter, it's really setting up a very, very dangerous, narrative
Yep.
for more continuous breeding. What we should be doing is working to change these storefronts into rescue adoption sites. We've got so many puppies. I could fill a store every day with puppies that people could adopt versus commercially breeding, keeping them in small cages, constantly forcing them to reproduce.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we call them working animals as if they submitted their resume for a job
Yeah.
and they're getting
W-2.
paid
Yeah.
and they have a W-2 coming back to them with some benefit. No, you're just a mother that's being forced over and over again to have babies, take them ripped away from you, live in a small crate. And then, when you're retired, we're either going to kill you or find a shelter to dump you at. It's just, it's just not okay.
Now,
Go
this is
ahead.
my
Go ahead, Doc.
disclaimer. Yeah. And so I do have purebred cats right now. But one of the things I did when we purchased them is we did a lot of research into the breeders, the process, or whatever. I've always had rescues. My last kitten who passed away, I found her in the streets of New Orleans when I went for my dad's funeral, like 4 days before I went to Iraq. She was a great kitten. Because, I've always, people and animals, babies and animals love me. I guess they say it makes me a decent person. But basically, people had seen this kitten, and my sister said there's a little kitten, and she won't let anybody get near her. And I just sat down, and she just walked up to me, so we had her, and we found out she ended up passing away early of a congenital heart defect she had at like 6 years old. We found out she was part of a breed called ragdolls, which is how we discovered the breed. And then, like I said, right now I have ragdolls because I love the breed. We made sure they were bred under very, respectable, acceptable conditions. But it's also because like we have domestic cats there. I thought that was Loki. I was seeing stuff. I thought it was one of my cats. Like, hey, you're talking about me. Let me make an appearance. But like just because they just are really, really good domestic. Well, basically, I'm so sure. After I lost Chrissy, the cat who passed away, my wife wanted me to have a cat that had a similar personality, demeanor. As we know, because I've had all kind of cats. Right. Cats are their own individual personalities. You know what I mean? But again, I'm sure at some point in time I'll end up with another rescue because that's what I've always done. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's just unfortunate, like you said, how many people are breeding. And that's the other thing about the breeder. They're not breeding large quantities of these cats. You know what I mean? There are only a few, and the conditions where we visited them are phenomenal for the cats, the moms, everybody involved. So as far as I'm not justifying the whole puppy mill thing, but I'm just saying, in my case, I'm admitting so no one goes later, he has those bougie cats. And I'm like, yeah, but I made sure everything was copacetic. Plus, like I said, the rationale for getting them. But yeah.
I mean, and like I have my views come from a different place than most. At the end of the day, for me, I don't think we should be utilizing animals as a commodity in any shape or form, right? So that's my baseline. Right. But I can also look at it and say, okay, there's this kind of breeder, whether I disagree with it or not.
Right.
There's this kind of breeder, and then there's this kind of breeder, which is the puppy mill breeders that are breeding commercially and selling in retail stores that are, forcing these animals consistently and living in terrible conditions. So, they're
right. Yeah. None of our breeders even sell retail.
Right. So,
yeah,
I mean, there is, I don't agree with the premise to begin with, but there's levels. There's levels to this, and puppy mills being one of the most grotesque. So, yeah, that was a local news break this last week. That's been going on.
I noticed that on your Instagram or also Facebook. Or something. You're like, you're going in because someone deleted your comments or blocked your comments. I also
got blocked. I couldn't use my Instagram and my Facebook, and that's part of activism.
Yeah,
but I said, what kind of 2023 best activist would I be if I didn't get my privilege taken away?
Put the name, and I'm gonna live up to it.
Facebook jail.
I mean, yeah, it's my year. I gotta show them what activism looks like.
No, I like what you're saying about rescues. I've had three dogs, one cat. They all have been rescues. The latest one, their situation, or her situation, Callie, was that she was in a household with her sister, and she's a pit mix. They were of the same litter, and her older sister was beating up on her. Oh. Yeah, and so apparently that's the thing with their breed, that there's a hierarchy and they can't live together. So a friend of ours had asked us to take her, and Callie has been absolutely great, and I absolutely love it. Yeah. So it's been great. So I highly recommend getting rescues for sure.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. And if you ever need one, I've got plenty.
She has a few. Yeah, she has some. Now, to switch gears a little bit, some of the things we met dancing maybe 14 or 15 years ago.
Yeah, at least.
But one of the reasons that we got along is not just in her sense of, like, I've always been like a hyper empathetic to the point of people saying I was an empath about stuff. Made me a good interview and interrogator, but also in tune with like having grown up like living and traveling in a bunch of different countries, and not. I always took pride in not being like going someplace and being like that arrogant American that thought we were better than everybody else, and that our way was the only way, and of life, and also a lot of Americans don't have an understanding for how bad it is in some other parts of the world, you know, and so like that was a commonality that we had, you know, early on, that we both like shared a significant degree of empathy for other people, other cultures, and a recognition for how people in other countries, you know, were struggling in so many ways, and people here just were clueless about it. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so, you know, we all kind of did. You know, all of my careers have kind of been geared towards helping other people. You know, and even now in my retirement, it's still about, you know, helping other people, giving back. You know, so I think that some of us are, you know, doing, you know, what we were called to do in terms of service to others, for society, you know, and I think that's fantastic. So like you said, you not only do that in regard to animals, so I just want to point that out, but in terms of, you know, because you talked about it, you said it, but you know, everybody loves animals, everybody loves pets, and most people really love somebody who's looking out or taking care of animals. Well, except for the people that put you in Facebook jail, but those people no. But you know, but you do a lot for other countries
Yes, yeah.
and underserved communities in other countries as well as the U.S. So you know that.
So a lot of times those efforts that you give, they go unrecognized. Maybe not so much in your case, but they
Best
go
in the Bay.
unrecognized. Yeah,
Woo, woo.
yeah, exactly. And sometimes they're thankless. So what keeps you going? What is the motivation, the factor behind it?
Honestly, I really have to say it's just in like I can't walk by. I can't be a bystander. I don't
Hmm.
have that gene in me. I can't see any being, whether it be a person or an animal, I can't see anybody suffering and not do something. I'm constantly like compelled
Okay.
in those moments. So I think that's I obviously gravitate towards developing countries and disasters and the homeless, and I have a huge heart for suffering, and I think that my empathy goes like what you were saying. Some people can have empathy and be the nicest person in their own circle, right, to their
Hmm.
own family, to their own friends, but they can't seem to like get past that. Like, why should I care about someone in Uganda in a village?
Right.
But we have to start having a more circular way of thinking, because everything has to do with everything.
It's connected. Everything's
Everything is
connected.
connected
Yeah.
in some shape or form. That person living in Uganda, whether it's because we've taken the cobalt resources and we get to use our phones because of their there's always some connection point, and I think that that's really like what drives me.
Hmm.
But also being okay without thank yous,
Right. Because a lot of that's thankless.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm really like in my own like research and in my own, you know, working on self, I'm really working on an egoless version of myself, and that's very important to me. So I'm looking for all the ways that I don't need a thank you, I don't need an accolade for the work that I'm doing or the person or the animal that I'm helping. And I think by working with animals, you see that, because you don't really get a verbal thank you all the time. I may just help an animal in passing, and they may go to someone else, or so I think not expecting thank yous, but also sitting in the fact that the only way to truly be happy is by helping others. I mean, that's
Let's say
I agree.
helping a human being in this case, by helping a human being and making life a little bit easier for them in some way or fashion, do you think their outlook changes and that is passed on or given forward? And do you think it causes a ripple effect or something like that?
I think in most cases it does. I'll tell you just a little story about a homeless man that I helped, a couple weeks ago. Um, he was so unbelievably grateful, and just in his own right, being that he doesn't have much to offer,
Hmm.
anyone else. But he was so grateful that he told me he was going to pass on this kindness, and hearing that,
Yeah.
It's a good feeling.
I mean, that's all I could ever ask for. And then on top of that, I just happened to be lucky that day, and I had a friend, and she was filming the dog playing with the toys we had brought, and
Yeah.
it was like the cutest thing in the world to see her reaction to having things. And what came out of that was this video that I posted, and what happened from there was that story got picked up, and they turned it into this, hey, you can store things in your car for animals and people.
That's awesome.
So I was like, wow. And it caught on, and people really were about it. And I had comments and messages of people saying, I made my bins today. They're in the trunk of my car. I'm so excited to help. So you really can make an impact with, these little kind gestures.
Oh, wow.
I think that's so true. And by the way, that instance that you were talking about ended up in Newsweek, correct?
It did. And, you never know. We were just talking about social media, but, you never know what's going to hit. And for me, I don't catch 99% of the work that I do, but when I do, I try to post it to
Yeah.
inspire people to be kind and do these, same gestures. And that was one of the best things that came out of it, was that everyone that's reading this on Newsweek is saying, oh, you know what? Like, that doesn't take me much to put a couple bins with some hygiene products, some things in my car
Yeah.
for pets and, people on the street.
That
So,
never would have crossed my mind. Like, and that's, I think that's big, and it's so little, but it is big, obviously, for the dog. And I agree with the concept that you were saying, by just being a little bit nicer. And I think Tracy has said this too, even so little as a smile, but being nice to a stranger, giving them some grace, they will return it back, and eventually it'll make the world a little bit better in certain areas. And I think that's huge.
Yeah, I think that it's like the reason I bring that up is like we talk a lot about well, having spent a lot of time out of the country, like not just traveling, visiting, but living. A lot of times, things that people notice that are from other countries is how, like, United States, we have like a lack of community. And people in the States sometimes will argue, well, no, my community is great, or my neighborhood. Well, no, we're not talking about that. We're talking about a sense of community as a nation or just as human beings.
Right.
And because we are a very unique country, wherein you look at like how huge we are geographically, that doesn't help our situation either. So when you have like some of the attitude that's going on, the perspective, as well as the geographic size, because I'm helping a friend of mine, one of my best friends, plan a European trip that he's doing. Recently divorced, he's celebrating. No, he's not celebrating. But okay, maybe a little bit. He's yeah. But so I'm helping him put some stuff together. I'll tell you, he's my boy. I'll talk about him in another episode. Shout out, but he knows who I'm talking about. I'm not gonna put him out there about it. But he basically we're just talking about how he's a really intelligent guy, but he didn't realize how close Belgium was to Germany, to Austria. Like I used to go to Belgium to Brussels shape for NATO for missions a lot, because from DC and Paris. I love Paris, and Paris had a great salsa scene then. I would jump in a car and drive from Belgium to Paris, and people there are like, you're gonna drive down. I was like, no, it's no different than me driving from DC to New York to dance and driving back, But like we have a difference, like we have states that are larger than a lot of major European countries.
Right.
So I just say all this to say is that think about Katrina. My family's originally from New Orleans. People in America, when Katrina happened, just like when Maria happened, to me, as like a person who's really empathetic, it was like just really appalling. Sometimes I have to reel myself in so I'm not like freaking out and losing it over like stuff I can't control outside the scope of my control, because people were calling. First off, people use buzzwords and toss things out there. They don't really understand the meaning or the ramifications. So you can't be an immigrant in your own country. You can't be there's no such thing as an immigrant from Ohio to Florida. Right. But the news media picked that up, and they were calling people who were leaving New Orleans immigrants, which carries a negative connotation very often. Yep. So with all the stuff that's going on in Katrina, like our own country and people, like when something happens in Europe, and it can happen in Spain, and you can live in Italy, everybody over there feels that and rallies around those people, and that's a whole different country. But in the United States, something happens in Louisiana, and people are like, oh, that's horrible what happened in Katrina, pass the potatoes. You know what I mean? I mean, some of the atrocities that were going on now, like people evacuated to the Superdome. People were, because there were sexual assaults happening. There were all kind of things happening in this environment where people were, it was just such a total lack of empathy or caring. And then, not to mention some mismanagement and bad planning that happened in Puerto Rico as well. But it's just that it's really important, not just internationally, but to realize the significance of empathy and being kind to people and developing a sense of community in our own country. Because if we don't, we are not going to fare well. You know what I mean? We can't make it not giving a crap about each other.
I totally agree with you. And I think to expand on this, there's two instances that really stand out to me. One is I have or had a coach that really made an influence on my life from high school, and the guy was beloved. God rest his soul, he passed away. He was so beloved that people from 10, 20 years ago at his funeral that passed through the school, the high school or whatever, came to the funeral. He would come into your class in the morning and be like, if it was me, they called me Eddie back in the day. But Eddie, you have some breakfast? Go in the bag. There's a McMuffin for you. Go in the bag. Go eat. Just little things like that. And people knew, like for the kids that weren't getting breakfast in the morning or whatever, if you were really hungry, you go to L and he'll hook you up and you'll be good for the morning. Little things like that. So much so that he inspired me in his passing. I had a monitor that I wasn't using, and I knew someone was having trouble, so I just gave it away. It was a really nice, expensive monitor. I just gave it away to pass it on. But moving forward, I was on a basketball court one day, and this AAU team was holding practice, and I gave one of the kids a little bit of advice, and the coach said, "Hey, you know, we're here. If you want to help out with coaching and whatnot, we'd love to have you." And that turned into like a 3 year coaching experience, which was a lot of fun in developing the youth. And so much so that I still talk to the kids, and we're guiding them through high school as well as career paths beyond college, right? And that's
Mentoring,
really, yeah,
like,
really rewarding. What you do is,
yeah, I mean, which I'm passionate about in
yeah,
any capacity, because people, I mean, we just, a show we just filmed that didn't air yet. When we talked to Darius, we talked about the sustainability of the online culture.
right,
And he was, if you could do that in lieu of going to college or whatever. And one of the things he mentioned was how important it is to find a mentor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, the mentoring comes in so many different ways, perspectives and that is what you became to a lot of those kids.
That episode is gonna be linked to the same episode as the previous episode that just aired. Um, what's your recommendation for someone who's looking to get into activism and do something to make a difference, but they don't know where to start? Because sometimes I feel that a lot of times people are stopped by their own fears and lack of knowledge because they may be able to Google where the nearest Chick-fil-A may be, but they don't know where
right.
how to get involved. What is your recommendation? What's your advice for someone like that?
Just start. That's my recommendation. But no, it is. I mean, a lot of people reach out to me. How would I start rescuing a dog? Or how do I, find a shelter that's good that I can work at? Um, I think the best way to get your feet wet is sort of similar to like what I did when I was in high school. I got involved in volunteering at local animal shelters. They had programs for teens where I could go and just get a couple hours in. And then you can really, take in that knowledge and sort of see where it is that you fit and where
Mhm.
you want to spend your time. I remember all through middle school and high school, I used to go with my mom and we would go do the Thanksgiving, holiday dinners
Mm-hmm.
at the homeless shelter. So stuff like that, just starting small. You can always do fundraisers. Um, Little things like that go a long way. Now, if you really want to go, the full, I want to start a
The whole
nonprofit
enchilada,
and, the whole shebang, then, you've got to go through some steps, do your research, but it is possible. I didn't know anything when I started, I didn't know how to build a clinic. I didn't know how to, I didn't know the medications for the dogs, but you learn these things over time. Once you find your niche and you really find your passion, I mean, YouTube. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah. Since you mentioned the clinic and you off camera, you mentioned to me that in Africa you recently have a working clinic helping 2 villages. Can you tell?
Yeah, so we have an area that is around 25,000 people that struggle to get to the municipality clinic. It's very far for them.
Mhm.
Most people can't afford to take a bike taxi to get to the clinic.
Mhm.
So we now have opened our clinic. We basically picked an area that would be the closest for 22 villages in that.
Mm.
So where is this located?
This is in Salima, Malawi.
Okay.
So Central East Africa, bordering Mozambique,
I
Zambia.
know Africa. That's my people. Okay.
Yeah.
I am not an immigrant. If I was, that'd be cool.
reference,
Yeah,
you
but
know,
I,
you
I,
know.
I was, of a product of the slave trade. My people go all the way back to then. But I know
Surprise,
I come
surprise.
from Nigeria. I go
Plot
back and forth
twist.
with my sisters.
Sure, Nigeria.
Plot twist.
So everybody I see from Nigeria thinks I'm Nigerian.
You.
I'm like, well, I did my little 21, whatever.
Are you a prince?
Three me.
I'm not,
for sure.
freaking, that's my people, man.
Are you a Nigerian
Nigerian,
prince?
that's my dog. You know what I'm saying?
100%. I see
He
it.
might
I
be.
met a Nigerian dude. He looked just like my Uncle William. I'm like, you know, you could be. And he was like, you look just like my brother. I'm like, you look like my uncle, dog. We people.
You know, I did funny little story. I did my DNA on 3 different sites.
And you were Nigerian too, huh?
No. No, but what's funny is I wanted to be Nigerian or Malawian or Ugandan, like one of the countries I worked in that I feel so like closely
too,
you know,
right.
so attached to the culture and I sadly I was not from any of those countries, but I got Tunisia, Egypt, and Morocco, and I was like, all right,
I gotta get
all right, it counts, but it
Yeah,
wasn't
Egypt,
Nigeria.
Egypt's the cradle of civilization.
Egypt made
Yeah.
sense. I was like, oh well, Alexander, you know, it makes sense. Alexander was there, Cleopatra. I get it.
Yeah.
You know,
I can work with that, you know.
So now you know when you get an email saying it's for a Nigerian prince, it's going to
it's right here.
So that's my people.
Things that you have done are amazing. Like the video, the film that you made. I watched a little part of that. I'm talking about hopping on a boat, going to an island, crawling through and walking through weeds as high as your waist, which I would never do because I hate snakes.
There were a lot of
Oh my God. And you went, Jesus
you rescue
Christ.
them too. Right?
When I'm in rescue mode, though, I mean, you know, not many people get to see it, but I go into like this mode. Nothing will stop me.
That's
I will go through a brick building. I will climb through a glass window. I will jump off a boat. That adrenaline is going, and you're in the moment. But that one was very scary.
That's the first thing I was like, nope, it's like snakes.
Yeah, it was rough.
Yeah.
So you should have made a good soldier because that's a
It was
that's a
rough.
key element. You be able you
I
got
guess I am kind of.
Yeah,
mission focus.
See,
and
that
you
was
do, you
that
know,
was always my thing. I was like, how do they sit in the brush for so long and they walk through it? Like there's like in Vietnam, there's cobras that stand up 6 feet high and look you in the face and spit venom in you. Yet they're walking through the grass like nothing's gonna happen. I'm like, nah, dog, that wouldn't have been me. I'm sorry. I
Here's a
just don't
check.
get.
Get
Yeah.
a check. Go do it.
Kudos to you guys. I mean, kudos to you guys. In my mind, I was like, all right, the snakes know that they're soldiers, so it's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna let them do the thing. But no, not really. That's
absolutely
crazy.
not. Yeah,
It is.
not no.
There's a lot of emergency room visits. I like have lost so many feeling in my right hand for 4 months. You know, my leg, I almost had my foot amputated.
Because of snake bite.
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
E, you're not a
But-
fan of the snakes, huh?
I had surgery in the DR. I mean, it does come with some.
Wow.
Okay.
And you still do it. That's how you know it's
Soldier.
Yeah.
That aligns with what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to ask you because sometimes you know this is a very inspirational work that you do, and you know you see the videos, you read about your stories, and it's oh my God, look at her doing her stuff. What would you say is the hardest part? Is it walking through tall grass and getting bitten by snakes? Is it accidents? Is it local government? Is it finding funding to do what you want to do?
Oh man, that's such a loaded question. But
We got all the time in the world.
it's never the rescue. It's the funding and it's the red tape.
The bureaucratic process.
It's the bureaucratic processes, especially in the United States. It makes it very difficult. I've been thrown out of so many states for my rescue work.
Thrown
Because
out of the states?
Yeah, yeah. Because they want you to go through this. You know, if you don't have the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding,
Mhm.
during a disaster, which only one organization gets it, and it's always the big guys.
Mhm.
But most of the time, they're not there. Like they're not showing up. They're not doing the grid searches. You know, so I have a hard time listening to authority when I see animals and people suffering. So that's when I draw the line. For me, my moral justice says, you know what, if you need to break that law because you've got a higher cause to, you know, go for, then for me that makes sense and I do it. But yeah, the bureaucracy and just the processes, and then everything. The paperwork in Malawi is very, very slow. Lots of inspection. That kind of stuff makes it draining. The people part makes it very draining.
Wow.
Oh,
But the
yeah.
rest of it, I could rescue all
Totally.
day. I could be in the trenches all day long. I love it. But it's the raising money and the begging for money and posting the fundraisers, and you didn't quite get the hits on the video that you needed to get the donations. It's a process. So that really is the hardest part. And then obviously, the disappointments when you can't save the dog, or you can't help the person in the building. Those things are hard.
If someone that's watching wants to get in touch with you, or wants to help out, wants to help with the funding, at least with that part to make it a little bit easier, how did you go about it? How did they reach you?
Well, for funding.
There we go. You got. See,
Since
Plenty
you
of
asked,
places. We have
Yeah.
Venmo, Cash App, PayPal, Zelle. So you can always go to our website. They do take fees. So like I said, the other ones are much better. But yeah, just to find out more general information about what we do, it's compassionkind.org. And you can pretty much find us on any social media through compassionkind.org. And that is where, if you want to make a donation or inquire about making a donation or volunteering, that's where you would make.
this show's a little bit more serious than a lot of our other shows. We try to talk about some serious topics and stuff, and some things that give people good information to basically to edify their lives. You know what I mean? But like in this case, like I said, is a little bit more serious than other stuff. But where do you see yourself? Not necessarily just professionally, but between professional and personal. What are your goals? 5-year goal, 10-year. What do you want? Where do you want to go with? Where's Asia going? What's she going to do? Is she, what's your? Do you want to run for Congress or Senate, or do you want to? You know what I mean? Do you want
I've been
to?
asked that a few times.
Right.
They love me in the government.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Oh man, I have, some short-term goals for the foundation, where we have our clinic. I'm trying to build a veterinary clinic across the street on our other piece of land. I'd like to create a tutorial that I can take, I get a lot of inquiries from different countries of people that are trying to help animals or trying to help people in their village, and they're looking for ways to fundraise and, get donations and ways to help. And I try to do the best that I can, but I'd like to have a more formal program, like an actual training that I can take to different countries so that people can start their own rescue. Those would be sort of the short term. I would love to have like a rescue co-op facility where I could help a ton of foster-based rescues here. Help have, families that are dealing with emergency vet visits. I would love it if I could have an emergency animal hospital where I could help,
Yes.
low income,
Oh,
or
that'd be
It
amazing.
expensive.
even on
It
an
expensive.
average
Yeah.
income.
It's expensive.
Walk into an
And animal
emergency room
insurance
and
sucks.
10 grand.
Oh,
It's
I've been
either
there.
your dog gets euthanized or you save your dog for
And
10 grand.
I'd go out and
We
freaking,
shouldn't be there. We just shouldn't, So
I'll
those
be a corner
things.
boy before I let my kid get, but anyway, you know what I'm saying? No, we don't have to do that.
Talk
Thank you.
about
And then
commitment
I
and
need to,
dedication.
That's
I
right.
mean, and then, personal goals. I'm working so hard to finish my PhD so that I can finish my book, and just do more public speaking and more, talks about compassion and empathy and helping, and, that you really can be a happier person the more you give. I mean, if you think of a moment in your life where you gave that screen to somebody, like,
Yeah.
how did you feel in that
great.
moment?
It was great.
I mean, that's the most beautiful, feeling. No material item can ever replace that. So,
Right.
yeah, those are sort of
Selfless
short-term
acts.
goals.
Selfless
And a
acts of
house in like
kindness.
every country and travel to every country and, learn 2 more languages, 2 more citizenships. That's a small list.
Little goals. Small goals.
The small goals for the next 5 years.
That's a 5-year plan, right?
Yeah.
After
Yeah.
that,
I mean,
Notice she
together,
didn't say
so-
sleep, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, that
Maybe
never
not.
happens.
There's no room for sleep. at that point.
Clearly.
Nah,
City Hall sales.
I'll sleep later.
Exactly.
sleep when we're dead.
That's right.
We're gonna have all her links on the video somewhere in the screen, also on the description of the video. So if you guys want to help out, make some of what she does a little bit easier, go and hit those links up. Right. This has been a great conversation. It's been very. I learned a lot from it. Aja, I want to thank you for being part of the show. Final thoughts.
This was great. I mean, I thank you for going, off the beaten path a little bit with, what I do. And, just, I don't know, my last comments would just be to be kind and, hold a space for not knowing what everyone's going through. And, patience is difficult sometimes when we're in this hustle bustle, life, and we're dealing with so much inundation of information, but just hold a space for kindness. And if you see a dog or a person on the side of the road that needs something, help them out.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. And you know what, guys? Listen to her. She knows what she's doing. She's doing a lot of great stuff, and she's like, hopefully she's getting the recognition for it, and she's gonna go places. She's gonna take it to the next level. This episode should already be on Spotify or favorite podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts. So check us out there. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share this with your friends. Help us
And
grow.
donate.
And donate.
Yeah.
Her links are gonna be linked to the video and to the description of the video. With that said, Mystery, take us home.
Hey, there's nothing more to be said. Be a little bit nicer. Give a little bit more. Smile a little bit more. Make the world a better place. Until then, thank you for watching. This is the playbook.